if you were born in a Western country to Indian parents, one of the things that we're all familiar with is this very strong emphasis that our parents put on education, either because they came here to this country so that we could have a good education, make something of ourselves, or because they already had a good education, were making something of themselves here as an educated professional and wanted us to follow in those footsteps as well. So they all want, their kids to become doctors, engineers, and IT professionals, right? I think we're all very well familiar with this. And I think that this is one of the things that's really ailing Hindu American society now, because we have all of this emphasis on academic achievement and career achievement, but the actual kind of civilizational foundation and the cultural framework, those things are kind of lost on the second generation because they're not properly passed down by the parents. Now, what is passed down is things like the mother tongue, and your mom will cook the basically the traditional food of whatever region of India that you come from, so on and so forth. So these kinds of cultural traits are there, but a cohesive, coherent worldview and identity that we are Hindus. We look at things like religion, morality, ethics, diversity, and all of these different things through a certain dharmic lens. That's not really put forward to the second generation. And those of us of the second generation that do think along those lines, that mostly comes from us doing things ourselves, our own research, and to some degree kind of having conversations with our parents and other elders in our community to kind of build that framework in our own minds, in our own hearts. Now, I think that this is honestly a pretty natural thing, because if you think about the kind of person that becomes an NRI, the kind of person that immigrates from or emigrates from India into a Western country, these are people that are willing to leave their family and community and all of these things, everything that they're familiar with, behind, to go halfway around the world to a culture that in a society that is totally alien to them and is basically different in every single way imaginable. The religion, the race, the social mores, the gender norms, sexuality, literally everything in American society, or Canadian society, British society, is significantly different from Indian society. And so the kind of person that is willing to make that change is obviously going to have to be somebody who is putting the financial well-being of themselves and their family ahead of all of these other considerations. Now, again, like I said, there are lots of parents who do a decent job at putting those values through to the second generation. But from what I've found, the vast majority of them are only transmitting these kind of basic cultural traits. Well, it is good and it's nice to have. It's not going to form a cohesive worldview. So something that when I talk to people about this, a lot of people criticize it, but a lot of people also think that what I'm saying is accurate. And one of the other things that I notice along this line is that a lot of the first generation people, the people that actually came here from India, they get into this kind of cultural, religious, civilizational kind of dialogue later in life, meaning when they were in India, when they were young, they're basically just oriented towards their studies. And then after they came here, had kids, their kids, grew up and became teenagers and started to either rebel or question things and fall away from the culture, all this kind of stuff. Then they start to really think about this. And also another natural kind of phenomenon that I think everybody is familiar with is that people, as they get older, tend to think more and more about big picture important things, into their 40s, 50s, and older than that. So I think those are basically another driving force. Or I see a lot of people say, oh, it's only after I came here, or, I came here in this year, and then 10 years later I started to get into this kind of thing. Now, in order to fix this issue, I think what we need is basically something that I hear that people say is, well, we need to just pull together a bunch of money, because there is a lot of money in the community, obviously, with doctors, engineers, and computer programmers and all these very high paid professionals, there is a lot of expendable income to go around to dedicate to something. But what is needed is not just money. I would describe it as a triangle with three different points, only one of which is money. So the other 2 points of this triangle, I would say, one is will, meaning there has to be an actual desire for people to think, we are Hindus, this is important to maintain, we need to give money to some Hindu cause to support it. And then the third point, the third angle of the triangle is vision, which is not only a generic desire to do something positive, but actually not necessarily a detailed plan, but a coherent, at least broad strokes idea of, okay, we're going to get money and then we're going to use that money to do this specific thing or this set of specific things. That set of specific things is going to have this direct effect that we want, which is actually meaningful, which is necessary and not seen right now. And this is how we're going to make this more popular among the people. This is how we're going to drive more money into this cause, so on and so forth, right? This basic plan. So we need money, we need will, and we need vision. Now, I think that in the community as of right now, there's plenty of money and there is also plenty of will, but there's very, very little vision. And this is what I mean. If you have money and will, you will donate to any kind of broadly Hindu cause, which may actually have no kind of meaningful effect on society whatsoever. So, for example, we have so many temples across the U.S., Canada, and other places, right? So a lot of people that have money and they have will just kind of donate to their temple, right? So they feel like, I need to do something for the cause of Hinduism. I have a temple. We have a very, temple centric kind of religion. And so I'm going to donate to my local temple some amount of, some hundreds of dollars a month or whatever the case may be. And then I'm going to feel good about I've made a contribution, right? But the issue here is you're not really looking into what the temple is doing with the money, because we all know that in ancient times, temples were much more than just religious centers. They were the centers of arts, of knowledge, of high culture, and so on and so forth, right? If we're being honest with ourselves, American temples are not that. American temples are places where people go because basically out of some sense of bhakti that they want to go, have darshan of different gods and, pay their respects to them, so on and so forth. And that's basically it. And they may have some of this like Bal Vihar class where they teach this very kind of childish imagining of morality or, certain values or whatever the case may be. It's never rooted in anything that's actually meaningful. It's basically the same kinds of things that people might get from reading fables or something like that. It's just kind of basic morality, basic ideas, which obviously, when you're trying to teach kids, obviously they're only at a certain level. But there's no instruction for adults. There is no kind of vision of we need Hindu society to do certain things, and here's how we can move towards that. That's pretty much non existent in any temple that I've seen. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are temples somewhere in the US where something meaningful is being done. But I have not seen that whatsoever. And the other issue is, or as an extension of this issue of having will and money but not vision, something a lot of people do is they have a kind of fondness for this very high culture Sanskriti type of uh, high culture, meaning they want to teach their kids Bharatanatyam. They want to teach their kids Sangeeta. They want to teach their kids, some of them want to teach their kids Sanskrit. You see Sanskrit Bharati and these organizations that are trying to revive spoken Sanskrit. Right now, my thought to this is whether individual people are doing Bharatanatyam or they're doing Sangeeta or whatnot, it doesn't really have any effect on the broader Hindu society at large. It's interesting, and you certainly have interesting conversations with them of how they explored this thing and they've kind of cultivated a certain cultural identity for themselves by getting into this particular art form, but it doesn't affect Hindus at large, meaning it doesn't cultivate within broad society a deeply rooted foundational Hindu worldview and all of that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. And that's not fostered by this. I mean, there is also nothing preventing people who are not even Hindu by religion for learning Bharatanatyam or these other kinds of things. On a personal note, I actually knew a girl who went to my high school. She was a grade above me. That she was classically trained in Bharatanatyam when she was a kid. She had her uh, that that arangetram, that show that they have to kind of be in front of the community, and this is like their big coming out of, okay, I'm a real performer now and all of that. And I guess she was very talented in it. I mean, I have no knowledge of how to judge that or whatever, but she was actually a Malayali Christian. Her parents were Malayali Christians from the state of Kerala, and they were religious Catholics. It's not like they were fond of Hindu practices or anything like that. They just got her into that because they felt like this is kind of native form of classical high culture. And that's just an anecdote, but I mean, my broader point is what we need to be doing is fostering a solidification of Hindu identity. So people see themselves as Hindu first, and instead of using this broad term Indian, because the other issue, and I'll close on this, is when you tell the second generation of people that you're Indian and you should be proud to be Indian, they don't really see a difference between Indian Hindus and Indian Muslims and Indian Sikhs, because by this definition, you're talking about the Republic of India, right? You're not talking about a civilization, you're not talking about a culture, you're not talking about an identity or civilization or of anything like that. All you're talking about is things like Bollywood and pakora and wearing a kurta pajama and these various things that anybody from the subcontinent may feel affinity towards. So dharmic, Hindu, these need to be the identities that are fostered. There shouldn't be any other identities outside of some token. Oh, I'm from this particular southern state, therefore I like to eat idli, or whatever kinds of little token kinds of concessions that you can give to some kind of regional identity. But in the United States and in other Western countries, what we have to focus on is raise your kids to see themselves as Hindu, to see Hindus in India and Pakistan and Bali and Malaysia and these different places as being their people, as opposed to Americans or people from India of different religions, so on and so forth. So please let me know what you guys think of the video. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Jai Shri Ram.